White begins with the standard king's pawn opening, aiming to control the center. Black responds in kind, and white quickly follows with a pawn push to d4, trying to establish control over the center. Black mirrors this idea by advancing the d-pawn, resulting in a symmetrical pawn structure. White then develops the knight to f3, attacking the central pawn. Black develops a knight to c6, defending the pawn and also preparing to put pressure on the center. White decides to capture Black's central pawn with the d-pawn. Instead of recapturing immediately, Black opts to counterattack by pushing the e-pawn further, offering it as a gambit. White declines the gambit and instead captures the d-pawn, leading to an early queen trade. Black recaptures with the knight, simplifying the position and leaving both sides with a relatively balanced pawn structure, though Black has an advantage in development. Middle game developments. White develops the knight to g5, targeting the e4 pawn. Black responds by advancing the f-pawn, supporting the central pawn and preparing to open up lines for the rooks. White decides to exchange pawns on f6, forcing Black's g-pawn to recapture, which opens up Black's kingside, but also solidifies Black's central control. White continues with an aggressive approach, capturing Black's central pawn with the knight. Black responds by pushing the f-pawn further, challenging White's knight and trying to create counterplay. White retreats the knight to g5, where it still eyes some key squares. Black develops the bishop to e7, attacking White's knight on g5 and preparing to complete development. White brings out the bishop to b5, pinning Black's knight on c6. However, this pin is not very effective because Black can quickly neutralize it. Black responds by moving the bishop to d7, breaking the pin and forcing White to decide whether to trade bishops or retreat. White decides to exchange the bishops, leading to Black's king recapturing, which centralizes the king and maintains an active position. White then plays the knight to h3, aiming to regroup the pieces, but this move is quite passive and does not contribute much to White's position. Black, on the other hand, develops the other bishop to b4, pinning White's knight on c3. This puts pressure on White's position and limits the knight's mobility. White attempts to break the pin by pushing the c-pawn forward, but Black's bishop simply retreats to a5, maintaining pressure on the c3 knight and keeping the initiative. Transition to the endgame. White finally decides to castle, securing the king's safety, but Black's pieces are already more actively placed. Black develops the knight to c6, completing development and preparing to increase pressure on White's position. White brings the rook to d1, aiming to challenge Black's centralized king, but Black's king calmly moves to c8, where it is safe from immediate threats. White then brings the knight back to g5, hoping to create some activity on the king's side, but Black is well prepared. Black responds by developing the other knight to f6, challenging White's knight and preparing to consolidate the position. White decides to jump the knight into e6, a bold move that temporarily places the knight in a strong position. However, this move also invites Black to counterattack. Black responds by moving the rook to e8, putting immediate pressure on White's knight. White tries to support the knight by advancing the g-pawn, but Black quickly challenges this by advancing the f-pawn, attacking White's pawn structure. White decides to exchange pawns on f5, leading to a series of exchanges that result in Black gaining the upper hand. Black recaptures with the rook, further simplifying the position and leaving White's pieces in a passive state. White tries to find counterplay by moving the knight to f5, threatening Black's bishop and rook. However, Black calmly captures the knight with the rook, forcing White to recapture with the bishop. This leaves White's bishop on an exposed square, and Black can now increase the pressure. Conclusion and checkmate. Black consolidates the position by bringing the knight to d7, attacking White's bishop and preparing to invade White's position. White is now in a difficult situation with limited active options and a vulnerable kingside. Realizing the danger, White tries to move the bishop away from the attack, but Black's pieces are too well coordinated. Black advances the rook to e7, supporting the knight and preparing for a final assault. White attempts one last defense by retreating the bishop to g5, but this move only delays the inevitable. Black's pieces are in perfect harmony, and White is unable to stop the impending threats. Finally, Black's knight and rook work together to deliver a decisive blow, leading to checkmate. White's position collapses under the pressure, and Black secures a well-earned victory.